these drugs are rebalancing the scales of a novel food environment that we've only recently created.
That's a brilliant way of putting it. Exactly right.
But it's adding more tension to the system, right? It's not like it precisely it does rebalance the scales, but it rebalances the scales by adding weight on both sides. You're now still probably eating the same hyperpalatable stuff, just less of it, and you're having to take the drug to improve your satiety so that you don't have the problem.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. I mean, some people do more radically change their diet. I actually was eating smaller portions of the same shit for a long time, and I have now changed a bit. I don't want to overstate it.
Does it make you want to eat different sorts of foods? Does it make hyperpalatable foods less palatable?
Yes, but interestingly, there's a range of experiences in this. So I was unusual. So I just want to preface this by saying my diet was unbelievably shit before this, right? One of the lowest points of my life was, I could tell you exactly when it happened. Christmas Eve, 2009 at 1 p.m. I went into my local branch of KFC in the East End of London where I used to live. And I went in, I said my standard order, which is so disgusting, I'm not going to say it in front of someone who looks as glowingly healthy as you, Chris. And the guy behind the counter said, "Oh, Johann, I'm really glad you're here." I was like, all right. And he went off behind where they fry all the chicken and everything. And he came back with all the other people who were working that day and a massive Christmas card in which they'd written, "To our best customer." Everyone had written like personal messages for me. And one of the reasons my heart sank is I thought, this isn't even the fried chicken shop I come to the most, right?
Wow.
How can this be fucking happening to me? It was a bad day, right? It was the second worst moment in my life of being fat. The worst was when I was fat shamed by the Dalai Lama, but that's a different story. Turns out he's a total bitch, but who knew? So this for me, that was my diet, right? Going right back to when I was a kid. I was raised by my mum and my grandmother, who were working class Scottish women, whose way of giving love was to give you shitty food, right? And God bless them, they were amazing people. And a lot of people, the worst effect of the drug for them is it kills their pleasure in food. So think, for example, about Jay Rayner, who's a brilliant British food critic. I'm sure you've read him. He writes for The Guardian and The Observer. He started to take Ozempic, and he describes going into like the best Michelin-starred restaurants in Paris, and to him it was like a lump of wood, right? A lot of people report this problem.
Is that a down-regulation of the way that your taste buds work? Have you got any idea what the mechanism is?
No one knows. You ask the experts and they go, we don't know. I mean, there's different speculative theories, but we basically don't know. And this is a big worry. Jens Jules Holst, who was one of the scientists who designed these drugs for Novo Nordisk, said in an interview with Wired magazine, this is going to make these drugs unsustainable. People just can't live without the pleasure of food. After a couple of years, people are like, this is too boring, I'm going to give it up. Weirdly for me, and I want to stress, I know I'm an outlier, it had the opposite effect, but for a slightly weird reason. So I grew up eating, right? And I ate huge amounts of shit. And I grew up in, we've talked about this before, but I grew up in a family where there was a lot of addiction and mental illness and kind of craziness. And I realize now, looking back, I never really ate for like very little of my motivation in eating, not nothing, but little of my motivation in eating was actually the pleasure of the flavor and the texture. I was eating to kind of stuff myself, to calm myself down, to manage my emotions. I wasn't, not totally consciously, not totally unconsciously either, but and with these drugs, what happened to me, I remember going out for dinner with a friend of mine, and she said to me, after I'd started taking them, and saying to me, it's always been a bit weird eating with you because you eat so much, so fast, but you don't really seem to enjoy it very much. Now you're eating so much more slowly, you do actually look like you're enjoying your food. So for me, I've actually gone from very low pleasure in food to a little bit of pleasure in food, right?
I think that's something that people don't often think about, that many people don't eat food to enjoy the process. They do it to just have that sense of being full in their stomach. It's almost like, topping off your esophagus with a little bit more food in the end. And that's kind of the sensation that they're chasing.
Totally. And it was fascinating to go through. So in the book, I explain there's actually 5 reasons why we eat. Only one of them is the one that is the most obvious, which is feeding your body, right? Like staying alive, the need for sustenance. Actually, and I realized how little of my eating was about that. I mean, I used to eat 3,200 calories a day. Now I eat about 1,800. I would have sworn I ate that food to sustain my body, but here I am, better than I was, right?
Still living, yeah.
Exactly, certainly not dead, right? So what else is going on? And one of the really interesting things is one of the fascinating things about these drugs that I was not prepared for is because they interrupt your eating pattern so radically, you can't carry on eating the way you did before. What they can do, for some people, not everyone, is they bring to the surface the underlying psychological drivers of why you were eating, right? Now, that can be a good thing. It can come to the surface and you can deal with it. But at first, it's quite painful. So I remember very vividly a moment I had an epiphany about this. It was 7 months into taking the drugs, and I was in Las Vegas. As you know, I'm writing a book about a series of murders that have been happening in Vegas, that I've been researching for a long time. And I was researching the murder of someone that I knew and loved. So, it's a pretty unpleasant thing to do. So I had a rough day, and totally on autopilot, I went to a KFC I've been to 1,000 times. For people in Vegas, it's the KFC on West Sahara, which I maintain is the grimmest KFC in the whole world. And believe me, I've been to very many of them. But anyway, and I went in and I ordered what I would have ordered a year before, just a bucket of fried chicken, right? And I sat there and I had a chicken drumstick, and I looked at this chicken and thought, I can't eat this. I'm just going to have to feel bad, right? And Colonel Sanders was on the wall there, like he's in all KFCs. And it's like he was looking down at me going, hey, buddy, what happened to my best customer, right? So it definitely surfaces these strange and unexpected emotions. Now, that can be very dramatic, we know. So one of the best ways of thinking about what these drugs do for us, both the benefits and the risks, is actually to look at a parallel area of science, I think. These drugs have only been used for obesity for a couple of years. So we've got a fair bit of evidence, but, we'll know a lot more as the years pass. But actually, it's a very good comparison point, I think. Not perfect, but good, which is actually bariatric surgery. So up to now, it's been hard, certainly not impossible, but it's been hard to lose a huge amount of weight very quickly and keep it off sustainably over the long term, right? The best comparison point is bariatric surgery, things like stomach stapling, gastric sleeves, that kind of thing. So we can look at, well, what happens to people when they have bariatric surgery? Now, some of it is negative. Think about what we just said about comfort eating and the other psychological factors. We know that if you have bariatric surgery, your suicide risk almost quadruples in the years that follow. Quite shocking, right? Now, I think that maybe some of it is that the surgery is actually pretty rough and you have horrible physical effects afterwards for some people. That'll be a factor for some of them. But I think most of it is, look, by definition, if you needed bariatric surgery, you were severely overweight. So you were very heavily eating. A very large number of those people will have been using food to numb their emotions or comfort themselves or regulate their emotions. And if that's taken away from you, you can't do that after bariatric surgery. For a lot of people, that will, at least for a while, manifest as just profound psychological distress. But you also see, if you look at bariatric surgery, the staggering benefits, right? So it's a really rough operation. 1 in 1,000 people die during the operation, right? It's no joke. But if you survive it, why does anyone do it? It's because the benefits of reversing or reducing obesity for your health are staggering. If you have bariatric surgery, in the 7 years that follow, you are 56% less likely to die of a heart attack. You are 60% less likely to die of cancer. You are 92% less likely to die of diabetes-related causes. And it's so good for your health that you're actually 40% less likely to die of anything at all, right? That's how good it is for you. So you begin to see, again, that very difficult cost-benefit analysis, right? You get huge benefits to your health from reversing obesity, but there's psychological costs, and there are also, of course, with these drugs, physical risks and dangers that you don't get with bariatric surgery.
This episode is brought to you by Element. Stop having coffee first thing in the morning. Your adenosine system that caffeine acts on isn't even active for the first 90 minutes of the day, but your adrenal system is, and salt acts on your adrenal system. Element contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio of sodium, potassium, and magnesium with no sugar, no gluten, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, or any other BS. It plays a critical role in reducing muscle cramps and fatigue while optimizing brain health, regulating appetite, and curbing cravings. The orange flavor in a cold glass of water is literally the best way to start your morning. I've done it every single day for over 3 years now, way before they were a partner on the show, and I love it. Best of all, there is a no BS, no questions asked refund policy, so you can buy absolutely risk-free, and if you do not like it for any reason, they will give you your money back, and you don't even need to return the box. Right now, you can get a free sample pack of all 8 flavors with your first box by going to the link in the description below or heading to drinklmnt.com/modernwisdom. That's drinklmnt.com/modern wisdom. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip, you will love the full-length podcast in all its glory, which is available right here. Go on. Press it.